I thought moving back to Africa from abroad was going to be easy, but I was wrong. No one prepared me and no video prepared me for the challenges, the cultural shocks in my own country, and the things that surprised me the most. So, if you're living abroad and you're thinking about moving back to your home country or a different country in Africa, then watch this video. When you're new and you haven't lived all your life there, security is something that you need to be considering. Your own personal security is something you should be considering. Even if you have your ancestral background in that country, you have your family, like your aunts, uncles, and aunties in that country, and you move to that country, you still need to be considering your security in that country. Why? Because people will consider you as someone who's coming from a foreign country and who has that back, who has a lot of money. Even if you're not rich, they know that your currency is when converted to the local currency will be a lot more, and so you'll be targeted. And I have a story for another video on that, but you'll be targeted and you'll have a lot of break-ins. So if you're going to want to move to your own apartment, you're going to want to make sure that you have security tight. I mean, those guard dogs that you heard previously in my video, if you heard them, people get them for a reason, because even the locals get a lot of break-ins. And so just petty thefts, and if they, jump on some bag, they will collect, and it could put you at risk for even higher instances happening to you. So make sure that your security is tight, you have security under control, and even if you're living with other family members or with friends, make sure that you consider security, because at the end of the day, if you're going to move to a different country, you're not going to be able to live in an apartment the entire time you're living there, right? So, well, not an apartment, I meant like a hotel. So the entire time you're living there, you're not going to be living in a hotel. And I would say keep a low profile. Keep a low profile when you're moving to a different country. Why? Because you don't want people targeting you. You don't want people to think that you are someone like that you're not. You don't want people to really, have high expectations for you, or target you for no reason. You kind of want to blend in, even if you want to stand out. Kind of blend in a little bit and be subtle, be subtle, um, and don't be too loud. Don't be too loud. Anyways, you're gonna love living in a different country. What I'm telling you here is just so that you don't have the false impressions. You will love it. I would encourage anyone to move abroad, even if it's just for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, and so on. And it's the experience of a lifetime. I mean, if you think about it, we only have one life. And if you're going to live that life stuck in one country, you're not going to experience life. Why am I saying you're not going to experience life? For instance, I was talking about driving abroad and driving here and stuff like that. You spend your entire life abroad. You know your way about. You know how to go everywhere. You know where to get anything that you want. You move abroad. It's a new experience. You start fresh. You find your way slowly. It's kind of like you get a new beginning. It's kind of like you get another chance. And this world is so vast for you to just stay in one place just because of comfort. No, I mean, you can keep your comfort and go experience somewhere else and come back. And once you come back, I promise you, you're not going to be the same as the people who stayed in that country for their entire lives. It's almost like, when you think about it, it's almost like people who get jobs. When we talk about people who quit every 2 years or so and find another job, they get better raises. And at the end of like 10 years or 20 years, their pay is a lot higher than your pay if you stayed in one company, working for that one company and getting their annual raise, instead of moving to a different company or switching to different companies, job hopping a little bit, not too insanely, and your pay would improve. And that's the same thing. Like, you're more valued if you're able to change environments and reinvent yourself and try new things and become a better person, a newer person in that environment. The people who would know you your entire life in one place, those people are not going to cherish you and value you as much as the people who would know you for like 5 seconds and start to get to know you how you want them to know you, instead of based on the ideologies of how people think you are, just because they've seen you grow up, or just because they've seen you their entire life. Even if they haven't conversate with you, they haven't communicated with you, but they just seen you from afar and they think they know you, and now you can't be better than what they have in their minds. Whereas if you move to a different country, you have the opportunity to reinvent yourself, be how you want to be, and expect people to value you how you carry yourself and how you present yourself to them, because they have no preconceived knowledge of you. And so really, it's the best thing that you could do to yourself. Even if you're not, even if you're in a great place. When I moved, I was in a great place in my life. I started my career, everything was awesome. I finished school, even though I'm still continuing school, but I finished a step of school and it was great. Everything was awesome. And I moved and things are still awesome. Alhamdulillah, 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 you people. But what I'm saying is move if you're thinking about it. If you're really, if you spent like weeks and months thinking about this, then just do it. What's the worst thing that could happen? You could anyhow just go back to your country where you've been living. Just make sure you could go back if you can. If, you know, what's going on in the world is crazy right now, but just make sure you could go back. But I would say still move because it's fun. Because, you know, if you don't do it, you will regret it. It's better to not regret in your life than create situations that will make you regret. Have you ever had like a comeback that you weren't able to say and you would still think about it like years later? What if this is one of those things where you've been thinking about it and it's going to be your life story once you're 80, sitting down in front of your grandkids saying, Ghana, Ghana, I've been thinking about Ghana, me and your grandpa. No. It's better to say me and grandpa went to Ghana than to say we've been thinking about it at 80. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do it to yourself. So experience life, and I encourage you to, go out there, travel, even if it's a little bit, and go back to your country. You will be much more valuable, much more equipped, much more experienced than your age mates and your peers that you left in that same rotting environment. If it's not rotting, it would be rotting once you go back, because you have new experiences, you have new insights from different countries, from different communities that you'll bring back, and it just make you an interesting person. Like, someone has things to say because they've experienced life differently, instead of just that copy and paste chat GBT response that anyone else could give you. No, you have literal context. Why can't I talk like this forever on a video like this? Why? Because I have so much things to say. I lived it. You know what I mean? It's not like copy and paste like some other videos which just copy and paste and do a lot of research. I mean, research is valuable. I respect it, but live. Go out there and live. And I assure you, what you would see on a screen and what you would live is completely different, and you would enjoy it most of the time. One of the things that would make the transition a lot easier for anyone is realizing that they're going to a new country, and perhaps maybe coming more often to that country to experience the country a lot more than just in one season. I know there are different seasons here. I mean, the first time I came here for like permanent stay, I've experienced different seasons that I didn't experience when I was just coming here for vacation, even though I came for vacation multiple times here. And so one of the times I was here was when there was really heavy wind. There's this really heavy wind that happens in Niger where the wind blows not only really hot, but it blows cloudy, like from like orange cloudy colors into like until it turns black, like it turns pitch black, pitch dark, and you can't see. And if you're inside, it makes these really loud noises, like your windows are coming through, or like they're about to fall off and your door's gonna fall off. Everything's like really loud. And so I think the first time it happened, I was with my son and we just ran into my closet and hid there until it finished. And I was so scared. I thought it was like an earthquake or something. And so really, like, get the feel of different seasons, just like there are different seasons abroad that some people don't like different seasons. There are also different seasons in African countries, so make sure you get the feel of different seasons before you move over and get the shock of your life. Now, this doesn't break it for you, but I mean, it's an experience and you just want to be aware of it so you don't get surprised, or you're not shocked more than you need to be. And if you're considering moving to an African country, I would say, even though the currency, when you're coming from like a currency like the USD, the currency might be um, it might be lower than the USD. Still realize that you're spending money, because if you don't realize that you're spending money ahead of time, you're going to be spending your savings like crazy without even realizing it. So make sure you realize that yes, the currency is lower, but yes, you're still spending money. So why did I decide to move back um, to Niger? Before I tell you that, let me share with you a little bit about my story. So I was living in the U.S. with my family, my nuclear family, which is my mom, dad, my siblings. I went to school there. I grew up in the U.S. Um, I went from elementary school to high school to college, university. I started working part time there to full time to my career dream job there. Um, and then all of a sudden, thought of moving back to Africa. Of course, it's not like I've never visited Africa before thinking about moving back to Africa, but moving completely from the US to Africa was something new instead of like coming for vacation or staying longer than 3 months for vacation. And so the main reason that pushed me to move back to Africa, there's a previous video that I made. I think it was like a 40-minute video, really detailing why I moved back to Africa. But to briefly tell you a little bit about why I moved back to Africa, I think there's a lot of reasons. My life was changing, the country was changing. And this was back in 2023. And so 2023, there was a lot of woke culture. And so, and I got married. I started having kids. Everything was changing. Check out my previous video if you wanted to know more in detail about why I specifically moved back to Africa in detail. This is a detailed video. But so the biggest culture shocks and challenges that I had, and I'm looking down because I have my laptop and notes down here, were culture differences in the US versus Niger. I would say in Niger, it's not as easy to find a job as it is in the US, especially for natives, people who haven't gone abroad to study or had experiences abroad. If you lived your entire life in Niger and you're looking for a job here, it's going to be extremely difficult. The job market is extremely saturated, and there aren't a lot of jobs out there for people to grab. So that was something that was really different, especially coming from the US, where I already started my career dream job there, and everything was going smooth. So I thought I would just, come here and transition and apply and get another job. But I had to do some job hunting. But alhamdulillah, I've learned a lot from that. I've learned a lot from that. So if you're someone who's thinking about moving back to Africa, and you don't have a lot of savings or you don't have an alternative, but to look for a job immediately, then stay where you are until you make up enough to save for months before you move, because it could take you a lot longer, especially since I luckily, like, growing up in the US, I always knew that I wanted to work in Africa because I'm more so in the non for profit sector, humanitarian work. And so I always knew that I wanted to work in African cultures, countries, with the culture and everything. And so I took French beginning high school all the way to college. And I double majored in French alongside medical humanities and health studies for my bachelor's. And so I pretty much have another backup language to speak with people. And so if you are someone, and this is why I bring up the language aspect, if you're someone who's only speaking English, and you're coming to an African country where they don't speak English as the working language, um, it could benefit you, but it's not going to benefit you if you don't speak the work language first. Like, you have to speak the work language first, and if you speak English, that's like a bonus. That's like really good for you. So they would choose your candidacy over anyone else's if you speak both of the languages and you have the qualifications, like everything else equal, and you speak English. That's really good for you. But a lot of people only speak one language. So, and growing up, I also speak like native African languages, especially at home. At home, we would speak native languages, local languages, and then in school and community, we would speak English. And that's how I was able to maintain speaking four languages. And I'm really lucky for that because on the job market, that's extremely valuable, especially in Africa. But if you don't get the job, you don't get to use those qualifications. So, but it's extremely good to think about the cost of living and living expectations versus reality. And before I get into that, of course, in the US, when you speak multiple languages, it's also beneficial for you. But I mean, in the US, there isn't a high need for local African languages in the US just because most people strive to speak English anyways when they're in the US. And so speaking English would do just fine, and maybe a little bit poquito español. Me habla poquito español, just a little bit, from work colleagues. I learned it from amigos, mi amigos. From trabajo. Guys, I'll stop there. But yeah, uh, speaking, I think Spanish and English in the US would do just fine, and maybe Creole. But in Africa, speaking French and speaking native African languages will get you so, so far. Now, let's go back and get into the cost of living and expectations versus reality. And this is something huge because a lot of times people think that, oh my gosh, it's going to be really cheap living in Africa because not only is the currency in the US higher, I don't know how to explain. Like it's higher than the currencies in Africa. For example, the franc CFA is like 615 of that. Like 615 franc CFA is like $1. And there's a whole bunch of things like 615 francs CFA can get you. It could get you whole groceries for an entire meal that could be cooked like for one person for like maybe a week. And it could get you a lot of things. It could get you, if you wanted to eat street food, you could eat, let's say, for one person, one adult, you could eat like, I don't know, three full street meals and you'll be full. You'll be full. So, like, thinking that, coming from that mindset and thinking, oh, the US dollar goes so far because $1 is so much in other different African countries with their currency, if you get what I mean. And so, when you have that thinking in the back of your head and you come here expecting that life would be so easy, um, you're going to be wrong. You're going to be so wrong. Why? Because you're not going to be eating off the streets every single day. No, you're going to buy groceries, and you're going to want to buy quality groceries. You're going to want to not go to maybe local markets every single day, and maybe sometimes shop at the supermarket where it's going to be pricey. Guys, I keep pausing the video to fix my scarf because it keeps wanting to peek. So I'm going to be slouching a little bit so it doesn't move. It's so soft, and the abaya material is also soft, so they just kind of glide off each other every now and then. Anyways, let me get back to the cost of living expectations versus reality. You're not always going to go for cheap food. You're not always going to be, see what I mean? See the scarf? Anyways, you're not always going to be eating street food. You're not always going to be eating like 200 francs CFA meals. No, you're going to want to eat good, like you used to eat good. If you used to eat good. So the cost of living, the expectation that, oh, I'm going to come to Africa and I'm just going to be eating these really cheap meals that are going to cost me next to nothing is really different. And it's not how it is. It's not how it goes. If you compare how your life is, for example, for me, I lived a comfortable life in the US. I ate healthy, fairly healthy. I'm not gonna say 100% healthy all the time. People have cravings, but I eat fairly healthy. We ate at home. We we had a really stable and happy life. And so when you compare that to moving abroad, you don't want to just come abroad and struggle like everyone else is struggling. No, because you're not used to that life, and that's not your normal. So when you move abroad, you kind of want to maintain the same rhythm that you had, or maybe something similar to it. And if you do want to maintain that, you're going to have to spend more than the average person does on their groceries and on their cost of life so that you can live comfortably like you used to live. Unless you want to hustle or like struggle, or just like you become very frugal. And if you're not used to that, you can't live that lifestyle. And it's really easy to deplete your savings if you're not used to that. The food here is also different. People have a lifestyle where they kind of tend to cook at home. People eat homemade meals a lot more than take out. That's not to say there aren't restaurants here. There are really good quality restaurants here. But just know that the food tastes different and the food is different. So make sure you adjust to that, or you have a plan for that. If you aren't really big on home cooking, you could find someone who could cook for you and you'll pay them. It's really easy to get services here as well. It's easier to get in-home services here than it is, I think, anywhere else in the world. It's just because labor costs here is cheaper when you're using like USD. It's not that you're not paying people what they're worth. You're paying people. It's just that the cost of things are cheaper here if you compare it to what you would be paying in the US or abroad, Canada, wherever you're living or trying to move from. Yes, rent in the US versus rent in Niger is different, or in any other country in Africa is different. But here, most of the time, people are not renting, people are building houses to live in their own homes. and it's really it's different. The buildings are different, the material, the quality, everything's different. And this is why I'm talking about it, because if you think about, okay, my rent in the US maybe $2,000 minimum, um well, you could get something really luxurious here for that. But if you're not working at the US rate to sustain your income at that rate so that you can have your rent at that rate and live really luxuriously here, because what $2,000 rent could get you in Africa is amazing compared to just surviving in the US. But if you think about it, if you're making African income from the African currency, sustaining that is going to be very, very difficult. This whole living expectations versus reality, the cost of it, it's a lot more than people think. It's a lot more than people think. People think, oh, clothing is very cheap here. Everything's really cheap here. Yes, everything is really cheap here because people live, most of the time, people live really, simple. They live minimal. Um, they don't really do the most when it comes to their living situation, and they earn their money locally. They don't earn their money internationally, and so with spending their money, they're really conscious and mindful of it. But if you're coming from abroad and you have this mindset that, oh, my currency is really high and I'm going to be spending high, or I'm going to be spending like I want to, then if you don't keep your job from where you're coming from abroad and spend it here, then you're going to run low real quick. And if you try to live like people who live here, then you're not going to be comfortable because you're not used to that lifestyle. You're not used to living on $1 a day. I mean, I don't want to be like, oh my gosh, it's more expensive. It's extremely expensive. No, it's cheap. It's really cheap. But for the quality of life that you want, you might have to spend more than people who live here would spend, if that makes any sense. Right? Like people here, I would say an average person might be using $1 for internet connection a week. That's really cheap, right? You would think that's really cheap. But I have an iPhone, and $1 for internet connection would not last me even an hour. It would not last me an hour. And I'm not flexing. This is not about showing off. No, we're past that mindset. If you're watching this video, you're past that mindset as well. No, that's not what this video is about. Like, this is to give you the reality of things. Like, for my internet connection, I would say I'm paying $40 a month, just like I would in the US for my connection. Of course, sometimes it's a little bit cheaper. I think I used to pay like $60 a month for my connection in the US, and then I got it down to $40 a month. But anyways, that's besides the point. What I'm trying to get you to understand is that if you want to continue living like you used to live, the cost of life, before you know it, is going to be almost the same as if you were in the US. Almost. There's just going to be slight differences unless you learn how to manage your money. For example, instead of when I first got here, I would be putting the $40 phone plan with the internet and the minutes for talking. For calls and stuff like that, right? But now I do it weekly, and weekly it costs me like maybe $30 a month, or maybe $25 a month for my internet connection and my unlimited calls or call minutes. Because once you get here, you'll figure it out. But what I'm trying to say is, it could very much so quickly get to the point where you're spending as much in Africa as you were in the US if you don't be careful. But one thing is that it comes with experience. I mean, when I first moved here, my cost of living was extremely higher than it is right now. Why? Because I was shopping at the supermarkets, not the supermarkets, but like the shopping centers. I was shopping at the shopping centers for my food, for my clothes, for all of my necessities. Why? Because I didn't know how to bargain. I didn't know how to bargain. Because like when you go to the market, you would have to bargain. You would have to bargain for everything. And right when you get into the market, people would know that, hey, this person is not from here. Why? Because they don't know how to bargain. The minute they ask you, like, you go, let's say buying groceries, you go to the market buying groceries. First off, you have to kind of look like you're from Niger or any other African country that you're in. If you don't look like the people there, they're going to start being suspicious. Like, You look different. That's number one. Your looks would give you off. Number two, if you don't speak the local languages, and if you speak the local languages and you have an accent, bro, they would charge you extra. And stuff like that. So when you think about stuff like that, and you go, for example, if I go to the supermarket where they would like put down all the food and all the vegetables and everything, right, just like a farmer's market, and you would go and choose and you pick out how many you want, and you'll ask them, hey, can I have for this much? Well, when I first moved back from the US to Africa, I didn't have a sense of how much their currency weighs. I didn't have a sense of, oh, um, this currency is like $1 should give me this amount of food. I didn't have a sense of that. I knew that it was cheaper, but I didn't know how much food $1 should give me, or how the quantity of food. Like, I didn't know. So when you don't know and someone puts, like, you say, okay, can you give me 500 francs worth of let's say tomatoes? I would think, I could get 500 worth of tomatoes, cuz 500 is not even up to $1. You know what I mean? So when you go to the market and you ask for, $5 worth of tomatoes, that's like, that's 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 a whole lot of tomatoes. That's a whole lot of tomatoes. But since I don't know that, if they put in a little bit, I don't know. And I'll just take it and go. And next time when you go, they'll up the price and tell you no, you gotta pay more. And you just pay because, like, you don't know the quantity that you're supposed to be receiving. Like, how is it that you go to shopping without knowing the value of the stuff you're shopping? And you don't know the value of it because you don't know the value of the currency you're spending. So I took a whole long time, like it took me a lot, like a while. It took me a whole while to figure out, okay, this currency, even though I have in my head it's very low, it's nothing almost, is very high here. And so I need to be considering it as high. My voice wants to leave this video, but I need to consider the currency high so that I know what to expect for how much I'm spending. If this makes any sense, please let me know in the comments, because I'm rambling on and I want you to understand this, because this is huge. If you go in buying a scarf, and in the US, a scarf like this, if you want to order it really cheap, you could get the cheapest I think you could get is $5, and like average you could pay $25 for it. But if you go here, you could get it for $2. So if you go in and they recognize that you're not from there, they'll say, yeah, this scarf is $10. And you'll be like, oh my gosh, $10, that's so cheap. Give me two, three, four. And they'll sell it to you like that, and you'll leave thinking that, oh my gosh, I hit the jackpot. But you didn't. You didn't, girl. And you can't think in your mind that it would be $2, because for you, you were paying $25 for it. And so you wouldn't even think to ask for them to sell it for you for $2, because that's ridiculous. Like, how would you think that? You know what I mean? So that's how they get you. If it actually costs $2, your scarf, and you go in, normally what they would say for a native there is, oh, it's $4. And then the native will say, no, I'll take it for $1.50. And then they'll bargain down to maybe $2.05. And then she'll pay like $2 and she'll go home with it. But you, my friend, you paid $10 for it, and you were happy, and they could tell you were happy, but they made so much off of you. And so anywhere you go is like that. And because I didn't know how to bargain like that, I would go to the supermarkets. And if I go to the supermarkets, the price tags on the supermarkets are high, because locals don't shop at the supermarket as much as foreigners do, or as much as people coming from other countries do, or people who are wealthy do. Like here, the supermarket, that's not like the farmers market, the ones that you go into buildings where everything's like lined up, just like if you were to walk into Target or Walmart or Aldi's for groceries, stuff like that. Those kind of markets are for people who are extremely well off, or like people who are a little bit more than the average African, who would go in those shops and shop there. Those are for like the elites, if you would consider it. And so, and for us, coming from the diaspora, that's where everybody would shop. That's where everyone shop. And if you think about it, it's like the contrary, because the farmers market was actually for, you know, the rich who would eat organic and stuff like that. But here it's the contrary, it's a flip. And so um if you would go to a supermarket, a store here with all the food and everything lined up for you to buy, it would be like two times the price or one and a half times the price. And so you're paying almost for that luxury feeling, or like that home feeling of, or that native feeling, since you're used to shopping like that, and that would cost you more. And so when I first got here, I was shopping like that, and my cost of living wasn't as low as you would think it would be if you were living in Africa, because I was still living almost like I was in the US. I didn't know how to bargain for my food. I didn't know how to bargain for things I wanted. I was still shopping, and I was still spending like an American, and I was still thinking in USD instead of in franc CFA. And the one mistake you could make when you move to an African country is to still think in the currency that you use to spend abroad, because that currency is way higher than the currency you're using right now in an African country. And if you keep thinking, oh my gosh, if they tell me, um, 600 francs, that's like less than a dollar. Oh my gosh, that's so cheap. That's less than a dollar. No, because people still bargain for under that word I can't say right, but people would still bargain for the price to be lower than a dollar, and you wouldn't imagine to bargain for something to be lower than a dollar. And so you're going to be spending more. You're just going to be spending more. And adjusting to daily life, transport services, and etc. So when I was coming, I put my car and shipped it over, and I think that was the best decision that I've made. If you're going to be moving from abroad to Africa or any other country, I think, especially from the US, if you have a car, if you have your own car, I know I come from a state where most people tend to own their own car. I know that people who live in bigger cities like New York or other cities like that, they don't tend to own their own car. And so if you have your own car, the best thing you could do is just save up your money and ship your car over to the country where you're going. In my opinion, that's the best. Why? Because most of the time, the cars that come to those countries are cars coming from, abroad, that had wrecks that are really like past 100,000 miles, or and they get here and they change the vehicle motors engine, and then they like fix it up really cheap and they sell it for higher prices and they make money off of it. I'm not saying not to support the local businesses. I'm just saying that if you have a really healthy car and you bring it back, it's gonna be better for you, because the life is going to be more on that car than if you were to buy a crashed car that was sent and shipped to Africa, that was fixed up and looks really new, and you buy it in Africa, because you'll have problems with that car in the long run. But if you have your own car that you know is good, just ship it over and you would not regret it. Unless it's a make and model of a car that doesn't really resist in Africa. And this is what I mean. Like there are brands, there are car brands like and models, making models that would not last in Africa, whether that be because of the road situations or because of the weather conditions. I don't know, but they don't last in Africa. And if you try to bring them over, it's fine. You bring them over. The biggest issue is that when you take them to a car shop, the car parts would not be here. They wouldn't be available in Africa. And so if you have your car from, your daily transport stuck in a garage because the car parts are not available in Africa, then you're gonna spend weeks before they kind of order the um order the parts from abroad and then ship it over, and it's gonna cost you a lot more than if it were a car that is really like current here in Africa, where they could get the pieces really easy, and the mechanics are experienced in it because they fix those kind of cars all the time. If you were to get a car that mechanics are not really familiar with, what that means is that when you go to get your car fixed, or if you need a little tiny thing, readjust on that car, you're gonna have few people who know how to fix it. And with fewer mechanics who know how to fix that car, the fixing price is gonna be a lot higher. Because what? Why? Because they can charge more because they know that you can't get it fixed anywhere else. So that's another tip. If you wanted to think about, transport here. Other than that, I think transport services, if you weren't really big on like driving, is uh, I it depends on where you're going. It depends on where you're going and what kind of lifestyle you want. If you want to experience that local lifestyle, then taking local transport is easier for you. But it tends to get hotter in Africa, and standing outside in the sun to catch a taxi and this your safety before you get used to it, I would say don't do it. I till up to now I don't do that just because you know I just don't do it. I'm not used to it. I just am not used to it. Like I said, I came from a state where you would drive everywhere for everything, and everything was like at maximum 30 minutes away. And so I'm used to just driving my own car going places. Now, if you were driving your own car and going your own places, one thing that you have to be mindful of is driving in Africa and driving abroad is completely different. Have you ever seen like those movies where they show like the traffic in China with a whole bunch of cars stacked up, and there's no moving traffic, but when the lights like give a go, everyone knows where to turn, but there are no signals, but there are no directions on where to go. That's almost like what it is like driving in Africa. That's what it is like driving in Africa. There are traffic signs, but people are not going to respect it. There are turn signs, there are no turn sign, there are one ways. You're going to be driving in the right lane, and you're going to be someone coming opposite of you, and there's nothing you could do about it. And so your driver's license is not going to be preparing you for driving in Africa. No matter how long you've been driving abroad, whether that be 10 years, you're still not prepared to be able to drive in Africa. Why? Because people don't respect the driving signs here. People don't care. People would drive in any direction. They could split one lane into two and expect you to give them the right of the way. Yes. Yes, and I'm not even exaggerating. If you are someone who've moved to Africa, you have to adjust to that. And you can't drive. Like you can't just be fresh off the boat from abroad and be able to drive in Africa. It takes a skill to drive in Africa. Why? Because the driving signs, the road signs, everything is not going to help you because people don't respect it. If you're in a community where everyone doesn't respect the road signs and you're the only one respecting those road signs, you're going to get hit because that's not enough. I know we've talked a lot about um, things that were unexpected to me or the shocks that I had. Now, let's talk about the positives and why it is worth it. So, there's a stronger sense of community here. There's a stronger sense of community in Africa, I would say, in African countries compared to any other country in the world. And I really love that. You really get the sense of living within a community, even if you're living in your own house, in your own compound, but your community still is very much so alive and part of your lives. If you want that, you will have that here. And if you don't want it, you could opt out for it. It's easier than you think, but there's a sense of community here, and I really like that. This is really good, especially if you have kids. I think that it would be very beneficial to have that community. And I think there's a movement now in the U.S., especially, of people looking for community, people wanting that togetherness. And here, you just don't even have to look for it harder than you would have to look for it elsewhere. Here, it just comes naturally. For businesses and career opportunities, now starting your own business, this is I think this is contrary to what I've been saying at the beginning of the video. When you're looking for jobs, it's a lot harder because there aren't jobs out there for people to grab, like I said in the beginning of the video. But if you're looking to start your own business, it's very easy. It's like super, super easy. I started my own business here, and the process was so easy. The process was really easy. And so if you're wanting to start a small business, you could. You know how you, like in the US, you start like online businesses, or you do like small things online. Here it's the same thing. It's really easy. um you could have your products like shipped over. Now, shipping to African countries is a lot more expensive than you think, just because um just because I really don't know. I really don't know why it's expensive than you think, but shipping is expensive. But I think it goes all around that shipping all around the world is expensive. When you think about like sitting in the US and shopping for something on, international websites and getting it shipped over to you, it's expensive. Sometimes it's even more expensive than the product. For my first batch of products that I was, for my first business here, I think the shipping cost twice as the products were. And for me at the beginning, it was kind of worth it because I wanted to kind of dabble my my feet in and see what it is before I get started. And then later on, I learned different routes of like shipping. That's not by freight, but that's not by plane, that you could do it by container, stuff like that. So once you learn, it's like I was saying earlier in the video, once you learn the different ways of life, the different options that you have available, your cost of life and the activities that you would do would reduce significantly in the amount that you're spending. But at the beginning, it's going to cost you a lot before you figure out your way, before you stop having that abroad mentality and living like people who or local here. So once you become local, life here very sweet, very easy. Career opportunities, I would say, in order to broaden your in order to broaden your opportunities or your chances at having career opportunities, get a higher education. If you're looking into working in offices or like a career like that, get a higher degree. Instead of stopping at a high school diploma, get a bachelor's, a master's, a doctorate, or a PhD. Get a higher degree. People here just respect higher degrees because almost everyone here has a degree and they're still unemployed. So once you have a higher degree, and I mentioned in my previous video more in detail, but once you have a degree from abroad, especially from countries like the United States, it's respected. They believe that, you have more experience, or like not more experience, but more training. They just value your degree a lot more than the local diplomas. I know the mindset now is changing, but people still kind of do value your diplomas a little bit more. And they believe that, their educational system there is kind of rigorous when it comes to universities and stuff like that. You have to really earn it to get your grades. And so get a higher degree, because once you have a higher degree, you're able to get career opportunities. But with smaller degrees, career opportunities are non to zero, non to existent, non zero. But you could start your own business, which is really easy to start here. So um, I started my own business not because I didn't get career opportunities. I love my career that I'm in right now. It's humanity. I love my career in humanitarian work. I think this is the best fit, the context, the country, the people. This is the best environment for humanitarian work if you're looking into get those careers. But other careers might take off. I just don't have experience in other careers. And when it comes to the positive, family and personal fulfillment is key, and it's huge. For me, I have my ancestral background in Niger, and so I feel close and connected to family. My aunts and uncles here, I know in previous videos I went into detail, but I have family here, It's not like I keep referring back to my previous video. So make sure you go watch the video that I posted before this, and I'll try to link it. Because it goes in a lot of detail. But I have family here. I have my aunts, uncles, grandma. So it's really easy to feel like I have, I'm personally fulfilled. I have my husband, my kids, my family. It's just I have family here, and it's fulfilling. And family life here is way different than family life in the US. You actually spend time with your family when you make that time. Now, this is why I go back to um telling you about the realities of expectations versus reality. If you come here living and expecting your life to be like it was in the US, you can attain it. You can get it the way you want it to be. However, you're not going to experience it fully like, people in Niger. People in Niger have time for family. There's family life here. But if you pivot your way, a broad way, you're not going to have family life, and it's just going to turn into the same cycle that you tried leaving. So really know the reason why you left abroad to come back to your country, because you're going to want to grab on those morals. You're going to want to grab on those ideas so that you can drive yourself or stir yourself back to really what matters to you the most. And so personal fulfillment, really, I make time for my kids, my family, and I really enjoy it. And it's easier said than done. Life here is just in general really, really slow. People take it easy. It's more so like a laissez-faire kind of lifestyle. People are really not rushing to go everywhere. They're not rushing for work. They're not rushing for nothing. Nothing is going to rush them. Encouragement and encouragement, if you're considering moving to an African country, I would still encourage it. I love it. I love my life here. Just know that the websites that you use abroad, like let's say and I keep saying abroad because I know not everyone's moving from from the United States to an African country. Some people are moving from Canada. Some people might be moving from a European country, but still abroad. That's why I use abroad. But if you're coming from abroad, the websites that you're used to using, even simple websites like YouTube and stuff like that, once you move abroad, what you're going to be seeing on those websites is going to be completely different than what you're used to when you're living in the other country where the websites are or the apps are native to. There's a lot of I don't know. There's a lot of VN apps that you can download to kind of make it seem like you're still living in that home country so that you have that apps experience like you would if you were in the US or another country. But just know that it's different, and some apps don't even allow you to use them when you're out of the country. So be aware of that and make sure that you have backup plans for that, especially for the apps that you love. I'm not going to be able to cite all the apps out there, but just make sure you're aware of it, because if you're not aware of it, you'll be here and you're not going to be having an opportunity to download those apps because they're not available for download in your region where you move to. Or maybe you have it downloaded, but you're not going to be able to use it because of the IP address. I think for your Wi Fi or for your data connection, that's going to be different. And I can hear dogs barking, barking. And I think this brings me to another point that if you see dogs in Africa, do not go pet them. Do not go around petting people's dogs. They're not friendly. They will bite you. And I know this got serious really quickly. That's because most dogs here are guard dogs. That phrase is hard to say. They're guard dogs. They're like they're guard dogs. They guard people. They guard houses. They are trained to be vicious and very, very vicious. And so unless you see someone who like and they tell you, hey, my pet, this is a pet dog, most dogs here from the get-go are guard dogs. And if you touch them, if you come close to them, if you come near them, if you see them walking and you look at them, they will bite you. They will attack you. They will attack you into pieces. So sorry. But it could be really funny because I know most of y'all living abroad, especially in the US, go around saying, oh, to people's dogs. You better not, don't bring that here. Do not bring that with you. Leave that where you are. Leave that over there. Because if you bring it with you, you're going to get bitten. And I'm for sure of it. So make sure you know. But anyways, I like to give you these sites of, moving abroad, moving to a different country, because most of the time most people who tell you or give you these tips, they haven't really done it themselves. They're not native to the country. And even if you're native to the country, like I spent this entire video telling you, like, you could be shocked. You will be shocked. You will be shocked. Not even could be shocked. Why? Because you haven't been living there. And once you move back, you're not considered as local. You're not considered as a native. I know when like people immigrate to different countries abroad, like the US, Canada, European countries, Russia, anywhere else, like once you move abroad, you're labeled as a person from your native country, from your like ancestral country, because whenever people ask you where you're from, they're gonna be asking you where you're from. And still, once you move back to where you're from, people are going to consider you as someone from abroad just because you haven't lived your entire life there. So you kind of have an identity crisis, anyways, because first off, where you're coming from, you're considered as a foreigner and from the other country you're moving to. And when you go to the country you're moving to, you're still considered a foreigner because you haven't lived your entire life there and you're no longer a local there. You see? So it's kind of different, but I would still encourage it. I would still encourage you to move to an African country if you're thinking about it. Even if you're not ready to move, have some life savings for about 6 months, of about 6 months or 3 months. Take a leave from your job if you can, or just quit if you have enough savings or have a plan B, and moved and experience the life for 3 months, for 6 months, for a year, and then move back if you didn't like it. But experience life. And I say this because I know my video talks a lot about the ups and downs, and like I was saying previously, that a lot of people don't give you the real just because they aren't local or they haven't really lived it. And the reason why it's different from other videos is because really, you know, this is real. This is someone else's real experience. This is my real experience. And so this is something that a lot of other people also go through. And this is not something that you look up online, you Google, you do research about. No, this is lived experience. And so I think it's really valuable to take into consideration. Um, but with that being said, consider all these points that I've said and still consider moving. Just maybe do it incrementally. You know, move to a country, spend 2 weeks, you like it, go back, prepare, save, make a plan for 3 months, move there, you know, get a place, get an apartment, make sure you're safe, make connections. There are a lot of security agencies out here anyways, so you know, get a security agency, have some guards out your door. It's really easy and it's cheap, you know, just so you feel like you're secure, because when you're new to a place, security could be something else to consider. So I hope this video was really interesting to you. Make sure to check out my previous video and the next video, and I'll see you there. Bye.